I don't think you can build a new world under the current educational system, under the current economic system, under the current political system.
You know, that is like, those are amazing careers. And I'm curious to know, what was your childhood like?
Okay, so let me complicate it a little bit. So I failed it badly. I was writing A-levels at the time, and we were living in Zimbabwe. And she kicked me out of the house.
The downside when we talk about scarcity is people who truly have a full passion for this business or for whatever that they want to do, but they can't even mention a price. They can't talk about it. They have very low self-confidence around this idea. It doesn't seem like I'm building a rocket, so does it even matter? Sure.
It's worse now than it was in my 30s and 20s. And I just can't imagine how worse it can become. 67% unemployment, youth unemployment, gender-based violence. I mean, the list is endless.
Hello, Resonate community, and welcome to the best and the biggest sales and entrepreneurship podcast in the whole wide world. Today, we're speaking with a man whose work sits at the intersection of leadership, learning, and legacy. Vikela Rankin, founder of Value Add, has dedicated his life to equipping young South Africans with the critical thinking and practical skills needed to not just find jobs, but create them. I'm so intrigued by the man that's sitting right in front of me, because I think the conversation we're about to have today is not only going to be a breakthrough conversation for me and you, but it's going to open up something that I believe we've been praying and talking about for next year. Mr. Vikela Rankin, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Wow, what an introduction. Even I'm like under pressure now a little bit.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I was telling my husband that I feel like when I prepare to speak to Uncle Vikela Rankin is I need to be geared, because I know it's going to go so many directions, but in the most powerful way possible.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I'm quite excited for our conversation. Before we get into the actual conversation, I'm chastised on this podcast if I don't do a fire round of questions. So we like to get to know our guests in the beginning to just kind of pick into their brain to know what they think like. But they are very interesting questions. I've got 3 for you. Okay. And the first one is, if your younger self met you today, what do you think you'd be most surprised about?
That it took so long. That he knew then what I should have done now, and I'm doing it now, but that it took so long. That's what he'd be surprised about. He'd have said probably you should have had a bit more confidence and belief in what both of us had been talking about for a long time back then and what we had seen to apply.
Sure.
Proud, but he'd be like, it took a while.
What do you think it took so long?
Sense of personal confidence, really, the sense of belief that what I had in mind was possible and that it meant and that it made sense. High levels of insecurity, something that I grew up with. So this is like a breakout of note to really sort of follow exactly, what I believed and what I felt. And it happened at 50. And it could have happened and should have happened a lot earlier. But yeah, it is what it is. As they say, everything happens for a reason. And that's what he would have said,
It almost feels like you're well more, I think, seasoned now for that version of yourself that needs to do the things that the younger version thought that they wanted to do. Or spoke about wanting to do.
Okay. I like that.
No?
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And as you say, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think what I try to inculcate in people is that sense of possibility. And really to make people understand and believe that what God has planted in you is destiny. It's destined. So, same way as an apple seed becomes an apple tree and produces apples, and those apples produce more seeds.
Yeah.
It doesn't question itself whether or not it's going to produce oranges or bananas. It is what it is. And when you get to appreciate that's how you've been created, uniquely.
Yeah.
And divinely, then you can walk in that walk with a lot more confidence and belief. And that doesn't mean it's easier. It doesn't mean life is like a bed of roses, and certainly not. Yeah. But it does give you a sense of destiny. And I think we should all be living with a sense of destiny, because in life you live and then you die. So what happens in between?
Sure. That's powerful. Talking about apples, giving birth to apple seeds, you grew up with a mother who was a journalist and a freedom fighter. And my question for you in this regard is that if you could go back to a dinner table conversation on one of those days, what's one lesson you think still shapes you today?
Oh, geez. Mtanam, there are no shortcuts.
Sure.
There are no shortcuts in life. My mother always used to say that. There are absolutely no shortcuts. You gotta go through it. There's no bypassing it. And at the time, she was referring quite a lot to education. So you've got. There were many times that I failed my equivalent of matric, my last year of schooling. I failed it badly. I was writing A levels at the time, and we were living in Mozambique at the time. Not Mozambique, in Zimbabwe. And she kicked me out of the house as a result of failing. I had to leave and went to the UK. And when I was alone, although we were growing up and that was what she used to say, it was only when I was alone I got it. It was only when I was in the middle of some place that people might assume was great. You're in the UK? No. I was alone. I had to make it on my own, literally. That I realized that, I've got to knuckle down. So, typically what happened then was that you used to write, really smart people wrote 3 A levels, and then there was 2 A levels that some people wrote, very few people. I did that. And then the geniuses of the world wrote 4 A levels.
Sure.
So, I failed with 2 badly. So when I repeated, I took 4. Yeah. I took 4.
You were going for the jugular this time.
I was going for the jugular, and all I did was sweat. And it was that, I think the genesis of that, of working hard and not trying to wiggle your way through things.
Yeah.
That really helped. And God sent quite a few angels around that story, because I think it was in my second year varsity I was struggling, and I wanted to quit university. I thought, I'm a DJ, man. I was DJing. I'm making some money. What's this education nonsense? Hey, this thing is hard.
Yeah.
And then I met this, I'll never forget him, postgraduate Nigerian in Dundee University in Scotland. Postgraduate Nigerian, Sunny, with a deep accent. And he took me aside and bought me a beer and said to me, listen, you want to DJ? He says, no, that's fine. He says, what I want you to do is I want you to finish your studies. Then I want you to take that degree. I want to put it in some drawer, some bottom drawer somewhere. Then go DJ. When life gets hard, you're going to remember, Konje, I have that certificate at the bottom of my drawer. And you're going to dust it off. And he says, you know what that degree is going to do? It's going to take you to the front of the line. And that's what kept me there as well. Remembering that there's no shortcuts. You've got to go all the way. You've got to go through it. Yeah.
It's something about that statement resonates with me in the sense that you have to also finish what you started.
Yeah. That's very powerful. You've got to, and you've got to create some kind of personal code of conduct, particularly around certain elements of discipline, and certain principles that say, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Yes.
I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, and I'm going to be consistent at that. So quitting wasn't an option. But once I got my master's, that was it. That's the last. I tried to do an MBA. I'm a bona fide MBA dropout.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if you went back again.
For different reasons.
Okay.
For different reasons.
Okay.
I wouldn't use it as an attempt to climb the proverbial hierarchical ladder, because I think, in fairness to MBAs these days, I was even asking my wife the other day, she's got an MBA. I said, when you look back now, and she got it about 12 years ago, how much has your MBA helped you climb the proverbial ladder? And she said, I think that, unfortunately or fortunately, has gone, but I would do it for want of a better word, practicalize something. Make it practical what I know theoretically. That's what I'd use it for. And I'd try to create an academic framework to the structure of what I know theoretically, which is, I think, probably the more exciting way to do it. Otherwise, I can just read a book, which I did a lot of. So
So you're climbing up the ladder. But I mean, talking about the ladder, your profile, your LinkedIn is remarkable. You have sat at so many leadership positions of amazing corporate companies. But I want to delve back to your childhood, because when I was reading about you, I thought to myself, this is so fascinating. I'm a young mom myself, and we were even talking with my husband on our way here that, I want my daughter to say, or our children to say really amazing things about us and the life that we're building for them. And when I think of you, I mean, you had this powerful woman as a mother who was a journalist and an activist, and your dad was a doctor. That is those are amazing careers, especially back in the day. And I'm curious to know, what was your childhood like?
Woo, okay. So let me complicate it a little bit. So
Okay.
I have two sets of parents.
Okay.
Those parents are my adoptive parents. They adopted me at the age of 6. I have biological parents. If you want to talk about living in shoes of people who were quite powerful, my biological father is Duma Nokwe, Advocate Duma Nokwe, SC now. And he was the first black advocate in South Africa. And he also was Secretary General of the ANC, and the longest serving Secretary General of the ANC, as well as the youngest. So worked very close with Oliver Tambo and some of the other leaders. And then my biological mother was one of the first women to be conscripted into the military wing of the Mkhonto Wesizwe. And then at 6 I was, they were never married, but at 6 I was adopted to the parents that you're referring to, orthopedic surgeon, doctor, and then went to live in the UK. But then from there we traveled quite extensively. We lived as exile children, as we're called. We lived in Scotland, a little bit in England. We lived in Mozambique. We lived in Swaziland. We lived in Zimbabwe. Lived in Zambia. Lived in Tanzania. So started my schooling in Zambia. So my childhood was one of a lot of moving, a lot of wandering. Only probably spent my longest period of time in my childhood in Zimbabwe for about 4.5 years, 5 years, which is probably what is the most stable place, because I was also older and in my teenage years. And when we were meant to move again, I seem to remember being the one who led the protest. At home and saying, no more, not this time. So, but I think with hindsight, it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. It's given me the diversity of life, so much so that, to your point earlier on, that the maturity of where I am today is enabled me to digest that life, and then be able to understand significantly more about how certain dots join and why they join and how they join. So it was a real privileged life. Now, at the time, we may not have felt that. We just kind of felt, but we're leaving our friends kind of scenario. And we felt, that there wasn't any stability. But I always tell my mum that, and she went through, Mum and Dad always went through a bit of a guilty phase in life about not creating enough stability for us. Well, what they call stability. But I said, no, for me, it's been the most remarkable experience that has broadened my mind. And when you add to what you were saying earlier about the corporates I've worked for, the multinationals, it's it's fed me in a big way. So great. We were so in the Rankin family. I was adopted, and then my mom had 2 children, and then my mom and dad had 2 children, so we were 5, and then on the Nokwe side, that's another 5, 4 girls, one boy, and then my biological mom had another child who's a boy. So we're quite a few.
So you have a lot of siblings.
We have a lot of siblings. And with the Nokwe family, we're very, very close.
Yeah.
They're an amazing, amazing bunch of people. So very privileged to have sisters and brothers like that.
I think you have the best sisters. I met your sisters and they were
Oh, you did?
really amazing.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
they've been looking after me
Yeah.
for as long as I've known them.
They've been absolutely amazing. When I asked you a question earlier, you spoke about the younger version of yourself that would look at you now and say, why did it take so long? And one of the things you highlighted was a lot around self-confidence. And I want to delve back into that, because I would imagine that you are, I mean, when you even relay that story to me, I'm just like, this is amazing. He was living in UK, Scotland. It sounds like an amazing picture to paint, where you would have almost at the forefront of the opportunities and the libraries and was there ever a part in your childhood that has kind of shaped this version of yourself now that you are walking into?
Yeah. No, big time. So as much, and that's true. There's a lot of privilege in the experiences that I've had, but underlying all that, there's a very insecure child. There's a child who, at 6-7, is adopted, which is really functionally quite a more sensitive time in somebody's life.
Yeah,
it wasn't a sort of automatic surprise adoption. I mean, my biological parents and my adopted parents knew each other because they were also in exile. So my adoptive father had left Scotland, come to work at Barra, where he met my mum. And because he was white and she was black, obviously in the 60s they had a relationship that was illegal. And my mum was very involved in politics, and to the extent that she was detained and served 18 months in that John Foster place. So when she left to go into exile, they went to Lusaka, and where at that time the ANC had predominantly moved to. So they knew each other. They met there, and they became friends, and they used to babysit me. So it wasn't like I was meeting people for the first time when I got adopted. However, I think there was still, in any of those circumstances, children are born in an environment where they, if there's not some level of security, then it can be quite tough. So my inbred insecurities started then. The traveling, obviously, in as opposed to some psychological extent, didn't help, because there was no sort of stability and continuity. So one of the things that made the reason of it coming late was a sense of understanding and confidence. And what I've always said in my conversations with God is that if we can make people understand earlier in life just who they were meant to be and defined and destined to be, then the walk becomes easier from a psychological point of view. Then you can do things that others. It's kind of like training a firefighter, right? Or training somebody who joins the army. You don't train them to say, hey, it's going to be a walk on the beach, right?
Yeah.
You teach them about how to navigate the challenges they're about to experience, but you embed in them that they're meant to be the kind of people who go out and save lives, and therefore when they meet a fire, it's not they know what to do. And we need to do more of that. We train people to understand what they're meant to do in life, but also help them navigate life when the challenges come and all that. So that's what my childhood has. This is what I've felt, and also the experience of meeting different people. One of the reasons I passed was because of a teacher that I came across when I was in the UK, who was just phenomenal in terms of how they taught. And they made me, completely see differently. So in 1 year, going from a complete failure to the next year where I get 3 B's and a D, which I'm still proud of this day. is quite remarkable. But it's about how the teacher came across, and I think we need to be doing and creating platforms for young people more and more to be putting that across to them, as opposed to the traditional educational, nothing wrong with times tables. I was just about to say something bad about times tables. Nothing wrong about learning your times tables, but you've got to learn more. There needs to be a deeper embedded amount of knowledge around life.
Yeah.
And what to expect and how to deal with it.
And I mean, sometimes we learn these lessons on the field, on the ground, while life is happening to us. I've shared the story on my podcast that my introduction to entrepreneurship was merely because I was working at a place where I was initially a receptionist, then got promoted into sales many, many years ago. And then I liked wedding planning and events planning. And I took a course and I started a business and it boomed, Uncle Vic. Like, it went so well that I bought myself a Hyundai Getz.
Oh, wow.
Cash.
Nice.
Okay.
Oh, cash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cash, but it was secondhand. But I was 18 at the time. This is like, oh my goodness. And by the grace of God, I started doing events of like very prominent people in the media at the time. So I think that's when the buzz of like young entrepreneurs started. So before I knew it, I went from running this cute little business that's generating so much money to doing so many speaking engagements for absolutely free because I'm trying to empower the youth. And it obviously feels good for my ego. It's amazing. I'm stepping on these stages, etc. And I think over the years, I've had to kind of dial back to say, okay, cool. What did we learn there? And how could we have kind of navigated whatever that was in a much better way? I'm sharing this with you because I want to ask you about leadership. But first of all, self-leadership, because I think that sometimes the illusion is that as long as it feels like we're going up and our ego is being fed, we are on the right track. But how do we know that we are leading ourselves towards the path we are supposed to be walking in? Because that's also a big conversation. It's the purpose conversation where everybody says, I haven't found my purpose. I'm still looking for my purpose. I don't know what my purpose is. So therefore people are not doing certain things or starting certain businesses or being part of certain communities. But how do we start leading ourselves with intention?
Yeah, there's sort of multifaceted answers to that. So quick answer to the purpose passion thing is, don't worry about purpose, understand your passion. Your purpose is an outcome of your passion. If you asked me 5 years ago when we started Value Ed, or even longer than that when I conceptualized it, what I'm doing now, is that what I had in mind? It's chalk and cheese, right? Do I know what it's going to look like in 10, 20 years' time? I have a vision of it, but it'll probably be completely different to that. So your passion is, what is it that irks me? What is it that makes me, the question I asked you earlier when you said, I could do this.
Yeah.
I could do this all day, every day, and I could even do it for free, because that's the podcasting. But what you're really saying is that there's messaging that I want to talk about, and there's messaging that I want to hear, right? That's the purpose. So what the starting point is trying to find that passion. But if we take one step back before that, we need to begin to, and it's tough in this day and age, understand who we are. We need to get to that point where we are spending a considerable amount of time asking ourselves the question that you asked me, which is, what would your 8-year-old self say to your current self now? What would your 8-year-old self say to your 12-year-old, your 12-year-old, to your 20-year-old, et cetera, et cetera? You need to take long walks. You need to learn to cut out a lot of the noise, and you need to start self-discovering. And a lot of people don't do that. They're really, really caught on a day-to-day treadmill of doing what needs to be done. And if you don't do that, you're never going to find yourself. And if you don't find yourself, then you're going to be a seasonal person who moves with whatever conditions are applied to them. And what tends to happen with those kind of self discussions is that you start discovering true essences of yourself that come to values. Who am I? What am I? What do I stand for? What don't I stand for? What do I believe in? What am I passionate about? Why did I get irked up yesterday? Why did I say that? did I really say that? Shouldn't have said that. I want to apologize. I hate apologizing. Why should I apologize? That introspection, that time spent with self, unlocks that very thing that God gave you. I always say that, think about it this way. In this miraculous creation of a human being, God has managed to produce, once a sperm meets an ovary, a human being who has eyes, ears, nose, mouth, a brain, heart, lungs, all the anatomy, skeleton, bones, legs, you name it. Oh, he omitted what it is that you were meant to be doing. How is that possible? How is that possible that he created everything? And by the way, everything that he created goes into where it's meant to go. Your eyes go. I mean, unless somebody's seen somebody with eyes in the back of their head, they tend to go in the right place, right? Yes. Ears go in the right place, hands go in the right place, etc. It's a miraculous creation. For what? Right? So it's either for nothing, and therefore then we start begging the question, do we do things for nothing? No. Human beings don't do things for nothing, but then why does the Almighty create something for nothing? Created you for a reason. And that reason is something that you have to discover. It's something that you have to find. It's something that is unique to you. The 8 billion people that are on this planet, no one of us are the same. We're all 100% unique. Your fingerprints, your DNA, everything is just completely different. Why? It would be easy just to copy somebody else and say, well, I'm going to do what they're doing. But everybody's unique. And in order to find that uniqueness, you need to spend time with yourself. You need to really self-discover. And that road is your journey. So I can't really prescribe how the journey is. What I can say is that you've got to spend time with yourself. You've got to put, whether it's an hour and you say, right, I meditate, whatever it is, what is it that you're doing that really, whether I do it predominantly at 4 o'clock in the morning when he wakes me up. But it's different for everybody else. Once you get onto that journey as soon and as early as possible, then you're able to start finding where you're meant to be and then distinguishing yourself from others. I've got a very simple philosophy about knowing yourself, liking yourself, and loving yourself. Now, I always ask people, do you know yourself? And usually they say, yes, of course I know myself. Do you like yourself? Yeah. Do you love yourself? Yeah, of course I love myself. And I say, and this was a conversation with God after I was going through something. He says, Vic, do you know yourself? And I said, yeah, I know myself. He says, give me 3 strengths that you have, that you know. So I said, well, I think I'm a good communicator. I think I'm a good listener. And I think I'm a good collaborator. No, they're not. So I said, what? He said, no, that's not your strengths. He said, the problem with those is that they rely on others. Every one of those relies on somebody else to validate it. For you to listen, somebody must be talking. For you to collaborate, somebody must be there. For you to communicate, somebody must be there. I want you to give me 3 strengths that are just yours and only for you, that I created for you. He said, look, listen here. I gave you eyes, right? These eyes that I gave you might look and help somebody else find something, but they're your eyes. I gave you hands. Those hands might help you, help somebody else lift something or carry something, but they're yours. Everything that I've given you belongs to you. You're assuming that I gave it to you so that you can use it for others. No, I gave it to you to use for you. Now, these learned strengths that you've given me are fantastic, but give me 3 strengths that I've given you that are just for you. And it took me a while to think about that.
Sure.
And then he said, well, if you don't know yourself that way, how can you like yourself? If you don't know the strength that I have put in you that is just for you, how can you like yourself? And if you don't like yourself, how can you, love yourself? Because once you know yourself, you can excel in what you know. You can improve what you know. That's liking yourself. Once you like yourself, you can then trust yourself. You can be kind to yourself. You can be thoughtful about yourself. You can consider what you say about yourself. That's loving yourself. You can't tell me you love yourself and that you say the kind of things that you say about yourself to yourself.
Sure.
Because that's not my love. That's not the love I created.
Mm.
So unless people walk that journey of self-discovery, and it's not easy. It's not like it's I wish Damascus and burning bush and our Saul and now I'm Paul thing. No, it's not that. It's a thing that I believe at schools that we need to teach young people to self-actualize to that point where they go, okay, this is who I am, and I'm a apple seed, and I'm going to produce apples. And that's what I'm here for. And as a consequence of producing apples, I know that as a seed, I'm going to go into the ground, so it's going to be tough for a while because I'm underground. Then I know I'm going to rise up, and then I know over time I'm going to become this tree. But during that time, I'm going to go through snow and winter and summer and whatever the case may be. But I know what I'm heading towards. And when I head towards that and I see apples now being produced, I'm comfortable with that. And the power of the multiplication of seed is that I can then spread what I do even greater. So our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. And that's what we need to inculcate on a consistent basis to people. And the earlier we do that, the better. Because it takes time. It does. That's why 50 eventually came along and God squeezed me out of a corporate job and said, listen, you can look left, look right, look up, look down, look wherever you go. The direction is straight. There's no other way to go.
Were you ever afraid to get into entrepreneurship?
Petrified.
Why?
Petrified. Because of the cost implications. You know, entrepreneurship is like climbing Mount Everest. What did Elon Musk say? Entrepreneurship is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. It's painful. It is a painful course of action, you know. But it's painful for a reason. Somebody was saying the other day is because it has to shed who you were to produce who you're going to be. And that pain is about getting rid of, you know, what is, to your point around maturing to what it is that you're going to do. It's been, it's been blood on the dance floor sometimes, you know, tears in the bathroom. It's been all sorts of things. But my why is it's too big now. It's too massive. There's so much that gets dumped into why we're doing what we're doing. Initially, it was, to help. It's way past that now. It really is around changing human life as we know it. It's about trying as much as possible to make human beings understand that our existence was never to destroy each other. And we are all a part of God. So every time we destroy each other, we're destroying a part of God. Our existence was to do what we're doing now, which is fantastic, which is, you know, advancing the technology of the world, to ease the world, but to do it in combination with each other and not to do it against each other. That's what I now truly believe, that God didn't create this to be like this. We did. Right? And we have the responsibility to change that. And we can't carry on like this anymore because it's getting worse. And it's just become bigger than that. So we need to build leaders, future leaders with humanity, people who look at each other and see each other completely differently to how we saw each other before. Before, you and I were competition. Oh, you're opening a podcast. Oh, I've got one. Oh, that's competition now, right? How do I win, make sure you lose? That was the philosophy, right? How do I gain and make sure you don't gain? How do I take your market share? How do I get your clients? That's what we were taught. That's what we were made to believe, that it's all about acquisition and acquiring at the expense of the next person. The future is not about that. The future is about collaboration and working together and building together and making things work together and ensuring nobody is left behind under any circumstances. That's what the future is about. And it's not a utopian theory. It's as much as this has been what it is in terms of let's kill each other, fight each other, and steal each other's land and gain as much as we can, this is also possible as well.
Briefly before we started airing, you and my husband and I were talking about the psychology of money, which is something that you are in the process of putting together and about to start. And one of the things that I was reminded of is we had a conversation with a lady called Nontobeko Sibisi on the podcast, and she was talking about basically kind of awakening the black child. And she used such an interesting analogy, and she said, what we've done is that we've caged somebody for the longest time. They've birthed kids, they've been caged, and then you open the cage and you say, oh, now you're free, just go. And you haven't equipped them with the resources for the outside world. So now they've just walked out of the cage, they are seeing the meat, the pies, the gold and everything else, and we just expect them to navigate the world like everybody else. And I'm reminded by that when we were just talking now, because I keep thinking to myself, if we are going to move towards the future and get rid of competition, or to an extent insecurity of the fact that I just got this deal and no one's ever going to have it, it belongs to me and I'm the only one who can write books and I'm the only one who can do this, what do we need to do to get to the other side?
Well, my starting point, so I have sort of one reference guide that I always go to, and it's a biblical reference guide that I always go to find an answer for something and then hopefully expand on it. We have been conditioned to believe in the power of scarcity. And it's a crazy thing because there is no such thing as scarcity. God never created scarcity. If you think about air, you can take as many breaths as you like. It's never affected me.
That is so true.
Right?
Yeah.
Day and night comes and goes. We've got water in abundance. Seed in its kind produces seed that multiplies that seed. One seed, I can take one apple seed and plant one tree. And from that, get 1,000 other seeds. There has never been scarcity that God created. But somehow we've conditioned each other to believe in scarcity. So when you have something, it's the only thing I must take. As a matter of fact, Adam Smith, the whole theory of his was that in The Wealth of Nations, if I remember correctly, was that human beings are self-serving and that there is scarcity, and therefore, as a combination of those two things, that you know things are going to run out, which is not true. We know that there's more food produced in the world than are people who can eat it, right? So we need to get rid of that mentality of scarcity. We need to get if you built in a unique way for a unique purpose, that unique purpose serves everybody else. It can only, if you love podcasting, and this is what you were meant to do, it can only serve everybody else that you can have guests here that come and speak, and you can dig deep into their minds and ask them questions, right? And that applies to everybody else. The crew that are doing all the filming and recording, this place that has been put together in order to be able to have the podcast. So everybody's serving everybody else.
Yes.
But the power of scarcity has meant that, we charge for money. We charge for water, by the way. Nobody's ever thought for a minute, why are we paying for water? We will next be paying for air. For every breath you take, you'll be walking around with something on the back of you. Every breath you take, there's
like
a meter.
8 breaths per second.
I mean, exactly. And then they'll go, you know what? I think you're privileged to have your heartbeat. Let's see if we can monitor that and charge you for that too. So we've built the system that makes us compete and fight against each other for what we believe is a limited amount of. And it's not true. There isn't a limited amount of anything. We don't want foreigners in the country because there's a limited amount of jobs and they're taking all our jobs away, etc., etc. We haven't re-engineered that to say how is it that when we are together, we can create more? Now, but I'm not sure if you know this, but I know your hubby knows this, that I'm a Netflix fan. And I'm a Netflix fan for one major reason, in that they have dismantled a system that was quite limiting. So when I grew up, Hollywood were the same people. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone,
Wesley
Snipes, Denzel Washington,
Yes.
Which was great, right? And we all grew up in a one-horse town where there was one movie that played for, 2-3 months. And you'd go and see that. I went to see Platoon. I don't know if you all know the movie Platoon. 9 times.
Wow.
Right? Well, there was nothing else to do, so you just went to watch it. And every time you went, you paid for it. Every single time you went. So if you went on your own, you paid for it. If you were dating, you paid for it, et cetera, et cetera. Here comes these guys who go, well, hang on a second. Firstly, why do you have to pay for every movie? So we're going to charge you once, and you can watch as many movies as you like. We're going to create as much content that you can get. But more importantly, we're not going to limit this to Hollywood. We're going to go across the globe. We're going to go across the world. And now when you watch Netflix movies, documentaries and series, whatever, 90% of the people you watch, you don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
You don't look and go, oh, it's Denzel Washington. No. You just watch the thing and it's good, right? But behind that, just think about the industry that they've opened up. Massively for everybody from a hairdresser to costume design to cameraman to whatever the case may be. It's huge, right? And they've done it at 200 rands per month. They have 301 million subscribers at 224 rands per month. How much does education cost? Right? It's limited.
Sure.
It's a few people, right? Because behind all that, there's still that scarcity mindset. And yet, what I think they've produced is 2 things. One that's obvious, which is this massive capability to collaborate. But the other thing is that they've shifted what I was going to say Eurocentric, American-centric thinking. Because when we watched movies, 99% of the movies we watched were from America.
Yes.
Right? Now, anything from Japan, from Finland, from Switzerland, from Brazil, from India, from Korea, from wherever it is, right? So they've massively changed all that, which means that my daughter has a crush on some Korean guy. That would never have happened in our lifetime or in my lifetime, right? Because of whatever it is that he does, whether it's acting or whether he's a model, whatever the case may be. So if we don't shift that scarcity mindset as a starting point, and understand that we can grow pies as opposed to take pies, then we will always be fighting each other. We'll always be seeing each other as the opposition and competitive and you have I must take and I must acquire. We're in a world currently where on one hand, the American federal government is on shutdown, and for almost going on 2 months now, there are people who haven't got paid. And yet, on the other side, there's a conversation about offering somebody $1 trillion package, Elon Musk, in his business. So this is why I say systems of you. I don't care who comes to me and argues about capitalism. It fundamentally is highly flawed because it premises itself on acquisition at the expense of. There is absolutely no way. I mean, they used to give you the argument that I'm producing a product and that product you're going to use so it serves you. But now we know that your Louis Vuitton is being made in China for 2 rands and you're buying it for $2,000, right? And that's the foundational premise of capitalism. We need to move away from all that in its massive sense. And we, in the psychology of money in Africa, need to understand that we need to build systems that firstly deal with that issue of the child who's now been the cage being open, and then you're going to go and get your 5 Lamborghinis and they'll be blue and whatever the case may be. But you don't have to do that because tomorrow is still here. Tomorrow will come. It'll be okay. right? And it's hard. I struggle with that. My insecurities have been reflected in money. And I only discovered that now in my 50s.
Sure.
People have insecurities reflected in different. With me, it's money. It's the fact that money gives me a sense of security, stability, consistency, all the things that, I imagine. And therefore, my knee-jerk reactions to spend and how I see money is just a function of my personal insecurity. And you'll probably find, and that's why when we calm down and stop for a minute and really reflect on people's behaviors, exactly what you're saying, there's an underlying reasoning to why people are responding the way they're responding. Us will be, but that's crazy. Yeah, it is. But, go back to the lifestyle of this, not just that individual, but as black colonized Africa, and what we were exposed to and what we were taught generation after generation after generation, then you will find that in the DNA of our generational trauma, we still carry some of these challenges. I watched a program the other day. It was really, really sad. It was on South Africa, about a gentleman, old, back in the 60s. He drives into town, and he's pulled over by the police in those days. And in the car is his wife and his 2 daughters. And the policemen, proceed to break his dignity in a massive way over a period of time. And 2 things are happening there. Firstly, something's happening to him, but secondly, his wife and daughters are seeing all this. And he's having to succumb to things like, if you want to go, you must dance. Show us how you black people can dance. So dance here,
Sure.
Why are you here? You live in Rustenburg, but you're in Johannesburg. Just a series of interrogations that he had no option to, but to conform to. But it was tearing him down as well. So his family's getting torn down. He's getting torn down. Now he takes that home with him, right?
Yeah.
And the family becomes the consequence of that, because he's a man. So validation and how he responds or reacts, he may be violent or he may be isolationist. So both are as bad as each other. He closes himself in a room, drinks himself to a stupor, whatever the case may be, or he's verbal, violent, and whatever the case may be. His children pick up on that, and they now become parents, right? And then you've got this ongoing thing. Now, that's over think about it from Africa's colonialism.
Yeah.
It's decades of years, right? Generation after generation after generation. How much of that is embedded in us? And how deeply is that implanted in us? So that when we respond to society's possibilities, when we look and go, yeah, but politicians, they're corrupt, they're taking this, they're taking that, it's all preservation, self-survival, the idea of scarcity, the idea that might not be there tomorrow, right? So how do I maximize at this particular point? And then it goes back to that self-actualization. Who am I? What am I? Etc. Then it goes back to that kid who says, well, why did it take so long for you to get to where you are at 50? So we carry these things with us for a long time. But we've got to shift as we shift people, we've got to shift the system. The system can't stay the same, right? Somebody still likes to explain to me why we have billionaires in a world of today. Somebody still likes to explain that. I mean, if you're talking about maximizing the most of what you have, what can you do with $1 billion? And is it okay for people to have billions and others to have nothing?
And die of hunger.
It can't be.
Yeah.
When you've got Navy SEALs and Army people who say, nobody's left behind. People risk their lives in the Army to save other people, to make sure that they are not left behind. That principle shouldn't be an Army principle. That principle should be a life principle.
Sure.
No one should be left behind under any circumstances, and you can't justify that. You can do really, really well, and you can eat and gorge until whatever, but still, you never go through $1 billion.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, that's...
I mean, there's an element of, like, you spoke about self-preservation. I don't know if my husband recently introduced me to game theory. And It's the whole theory around two prisoners being caught doing the same thing, and they have to convince the other one that if you rat this one out, you're going to get less years. So kind of negotiate both of them together. And I think you mentioned earlier about knowing ourselves, loving ourselves, and trusting ourselves. Because I think trust is a very big conversation, especially when we move in as a community going somewhere. Because I'm sure there are people whose fingers have been burned, who've lost their loved ones because they trusted a certain vision, they trusted a certain political party, they trusted a certain group of people to take them somewhere. How do we navigate that? Because at the end of the day, I mean, there's different conversations around, I'm just going to look out for me and my family only, and that's all we're ever going to be because we can't trust anybody. What if they do this? What if they do that? And then therefore steers us away from actually moving in the direction that you are almost encouraging us to go.
Yeah, look, under the current circumstances, it's hard. That's why I said you got to change the system.
I see.
You got to Netflix the system.
Yeah, shucks.
Right? You've got to completely produce something. Future leaders have to look at what it is that we're doing and change it. This is probably why I love the current president of Botswana, because he's talking a lot about that. So under the current circumstances, I think it's very hard to drop everything and just go in one direction.
I see.
So hopefully as we build platforms and places where we're enhancing people's thinking, they will go back to start re-engineering some of the systems and the processes that are there around certain things. But trust is earned. Trust takes time.
Yeah.
You don't offer trust. There's a formula to trust. Trust is saying what it is that you're going to do, and saying is very important. Plus, is it times or plus? Plus, doing what you said you were going to do, right? Plus the ability to be able to do it. So if I said to you, you said to me, oh, can you pick me up at 2:00 in such and such a place? I'd say, yeah, I'll pick you up at 2:00 in such a place. But I don't have a car. Don't have the ability to do it, right? So it's saying what you're going to do, plus doing what you're going to do, plus having the ability to do what you're going to do, plus the consistency of that. Right, so you got to do it over time, and therefore I then build trust. So with anybody who's working with anybody or doing something, that's what they've got to be looking out for.
Yes,
they've got to be looking about, do they say what they're going to do, and do they do it, and they do it consistently? Because remember, trust is, if you think of gangs, they build a lot of trust.
True,
because in gangs, what you say you're going to do and doing it is important, right? And doing it consistently is important. Sure. The moment they think you've ratted out or whatever, you're gone, right? So that still needs to continue. But that's why I say that you've got to radicalize the system and start changing the system. Because I don't think you can build a new world under the current educational system, under the current economic system, under the current political system, right? This democracy, politics that we all blab about is an old ancient Greek philosophy that was adopted by the Roman Empire, that was spread around the world, right? We had our systems before as to how we did things as Africans in Africa. So we have to reevaluate absolutely everything and begin to understand what is the originating elements of these things. I would talk about it even with tradition. There's tradition, this is badly phrased, but I'm still working on it. But there's tradition, there's culture, and then there's practices. Tradition is the seed of why we do things.
Sure.
The genesis of it. Practice is what we've taken out of it to use for our advantage. So tradition, for example, if you take Lobola, was about families meeting each other. The practice of it today is about how much money can we make.
That is so true.
So when we start using practices as the definition of tradition, it becomes a problem. So we have to go back to systems and start saying, let's break this down and understand why it's there. Why do we behave the way we behave? And is it serving the greater good of humanity?
Yeah.
And if it's not, eliminate it with no reservations. There will be people who will argue for it, and it's usually because, to your point, it benefits them.
Yeah. What do you think people like myself and younger need to be actively doing right now if we are trying to get where you're saying that we have to change the entire system? Do you also think it's going to take a completely new leadership, all the people that are in power right now? And what should the emerging leadership start doing or continue to do now to prepare themselves for that?
For me, the simple seed is building leaders with humanity. And that means that when you look at everybody, understand that they're human. You know, there's a great example that was used about somebody putting 5 or 6 buckets of water, or 5 or 6 buckets down. All the buckets are different colors, and then you fill each of the buckets with water. And then you say, what do you see? And most people say, I see buckets of water. And I say, yeah, but this one is yellow. Isn't that different to that one that's blue? And you go, no, it's still water. So, but what makes it water? It's the content in it is water. But what about the color? Doesn't that have a distinction, make it distinctly different if there's water in a blue bucket than in a yellow bucket? No, it's still water. You sure? Yeah. Well, we all have blood, right? It's red. It bleeds. Everybody has a heart. Everybody's circulatory system works the same. We all go to the loo in one way or another. We're all human. The fact that this outside layer of who we are is different doesn't define the fact that we're all human beings, or undefine the fact that we're all human beings. And if we can ingrain that in our DNA, then we'll see people very differently. We'll start seeing people as who they are and what they are, right? And what they can do and what possibilities they are. And we'll stop both the race and the gender divide. Then we start interceding a little deeper to understand, okay, so these distinctions, why is the bucket blue? Why is the bucket red? Well, oh, blue is very good at this, or red is very good at that, whatever the case may be. And then we start using the exterior to define what our capabilities are, and what we can do, and where we can go, and how far we can go. Because at the end of the day, if you look at it from a gender point of view, every human being on this planet is made by a woman.
Very true.
There would not be a planet if it wasn't women, right? And that's the creation of life. The creation of life, seed and ovary, to produce a human. Stop and think about that for a moment. That's
sure.
Pretty remarkable. When as a parent, when you look at your child, you go, I just took a microscopic sperm and ovary. Sure. And all this is now being produced. And then the genesis of that, the growth, not much you're doing, you're just feeding him. And everything else is coming together, right? So we all are like that as human beings. And if we then begin to start understanding how we see things and how we do things, and create that as much as possible from a humanitarian point of view, from a human point of view, then we'll change the way things are. But we've got to do that and change the systems. But I think as a consequence of that, you will change the systems. As a consequence of that, you'll go, no, but hang on, that can't be right.
Yeah.
That can't be right that there's this and there's not that. That can't be right that there's this and not that. Otherwise, the systems will continue to benefit themselves. The systems of education will continue as is because it benefits itself. The systems of religion will continue as it is. We were talking earlier about, but churches should be in their communities. Yes. They should be changing communities, right? Not giving people the sense that God, you come in Sunday and God's going to, bestow upon you. It doesn't work like that. There's no way in the Bible it works like that. So they have to be ingraining that into individuals. Otherwise, it serves these religious communities to be getting people to eat grass and do whatever it is that they do that they think is, plausible. So as the systems change, as people discover who they are as individuals and as people discover who they are as each other, then you quickly go, wow, geez, I can't live without you guys. I need you. I need you to be the best version of who you can be, because you add something to this massive jigsaw puzzle. I've always believed that every single one of us is a piece of God. The moment he breathed into us, he reproduced himself. Every single one of us, from different races, different cultures, we are all a piece of God. That infinite being, however you see it from the different perspectives. So when we attack each other, we attack God.
That's so profound.
We attack him.
That is
and we give the dark side of life the better sort of motive to continue creating the dark side of life. No, we are. I have ideas around that are pretty radical. It also just maybe as a thought process about just how powerful that is. I would say to my wife, have you ever thought why it is that every human being is comfortable in going on a safari to see lions and elephants and all sorts of things? But if I put a spider here, you are all out the window. If I put a snake here, you'll all be out of the window. You'll be fighting to go through that door there.
Sure.
Right? And that commonality of reaction and response to those things says that there's something in our spirit that we share in common. There's something about what God has created on this platform of earth that our spirits share in common. So I'm not even talking about the buckets anymore, and I'm not even talking about the water in terms of the organs and all that. I'm talking about the thing that makes you, which is the spirit. Sure. And if we can get to that humanity level of understanding that the spirit in us is what actually God created for us, we'll kill all this, even gender issues. We'll begin to understand that, geez, women needs to be not respected but revered for who they are, for the fact that they're the thing. Adam was in the garden. He had everything, absolutely everything.
That's true.
And yet, he wasn't happy.
Sure.
And he wasn't happy, and God said it's not good for man to be alone. God didn't then go and create Eve the same way he created Adam. He reached into Adam and pulled out of him from his rib flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. You want to understand why men have issues today? Because they have no woman. We were not designed as men to be able to navigate life on our own. We can't. We just have no compass. It is the woman that gives the balance, the direction, the possibility, the expectation, the strength, the nurturing to the man to be a man. And when men see that, they will have a completely different view of how they treat women. Men's groups coming together are fantastic, but that's not what's missing. What's missing is their sense of identity. And that sense of identity comes from women. That's the power of that. God went and created Adam first, created woman, but who did he put in them the ability to recreate what he is? In woman. So when you look at women, just be careful what you're looking at, because you're looking at the closest thing on this planet to a God that produces.
This is so good, because I'm also reflecting on the scripture, and I remember very well where after God creates Adam, he creates all the animals, and the Lord says, name them. So he gives them names based on what he sees. And after Eve is created, God doesn't say, this is your wife, no. He sees her, to your point, to men being able to see women. He sees her and identifies her as bone of my bone.
Flesh of my.
It was literally through him that he would see that this resembles me.
Beautiful interpretation. We never saw it like that. That's a revelation to me. I'm even getting goosebumps. Absolutely. That when we as humanity begin to start understanding each other and seeing what the purposes of each other are on this planet, we will work so differently to deal with the challenges of life and to deal, not just in this dimension. By the way, that's another, we can go this into another level. This is one dimension of life. There's the dimension after this. And the battle about good and evil, what we are seeing here is just a portion of it. It's a monstrous battle out there. I always used to ask, why did God have angels, an archangel, and angels to guard and protect him? Because there is only so much that he can do to a certain extent that other angels have to come in and protect not just him, but the rest of what he's creating and the rest of what he's doing. So when we really dig deep to that sort of level of understanding, I mean, we get stuck at knowledge because knowledge is really information and data put together. Yes. Understanding is, why is that knowledge? Why is that there? It's the joining of the dots and really beginning to see the bigger scope of things. And I that's why I say that the reverence of women or each other as races, we need to heal. There's a lot of healing that needs to take place. Yeah. But I'm still a massive advocate. As we heal, as we figure that out, we got to break the system. The system as it stands just cannot carry on. We can't. This capitalist mentality of taking from each other and acquiring as much as we can is just, it needs to, and I even go as far as to say from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. I mean, they've tried this ESG and all these kind of wonderful things about, at the bottom line is that if we use money as a mechanism to define success or human beings' existence, we're doomed. This will just get worse. The tariffs of what Trump is trying to do and saying to everybody, you can't barter with each other or you can't trade with each other or it's going to cost you to do that. It's just a classical example of how bad this thing is going. But back in the day, we used to barter. You've got a cup, I've got water. You might want some water in your cup.
Yes.
Do, right? That's how it used to work. That's how human beings exist. You've got cabbage, you've got carrots, you've got da-da-da-da-da. We need to go back to ensuring that we are fulfilling each other with the capabilities that we have, as opposed to competing with each other with the capabilities that we have. And if the divide gender, the divide, money, the divide society, it's just getting worse.
Sure.
It's worse now than it was in my 30s and 20s. And I just can't imagine how worse it can become. 67% unemployment, youth unemployment, gender-based violence. I mean, the list is endless, right? People not being allowed to go to hospitals because they're foreigners. Think about that mentality. When you say mother can't take a child to a hospital because you come from further up the road, So we're building these new ways of thinking that define scarcity in a whole new level, that create these kind of challenges that we just can't allow to continue. Otherwise, our children's children is just going to be,
There's a podcast I listen to, and I've been throwing it to my husband to listen to all the time because it really spoke to me. It was Brene Brown and Stephen Bartlett, and she teaches this mythology or framework around leadership. And I'm reminded of it when you were just talking. And I paraphrase, but she says there are different kinds of leadership. So there's leadership over, leadership with, and leadership to. And she labors on leadership over, which is what we're seeing all over the world, where if you were to maintain the concept of being leadership over is you consistently have to be doing huge acts of cruelty to reinstate your power all the time so that people know that you are a leader over them in a forceful way. And this is something that is happening not only all over the world, but even in organizations and with the gender wars that you're talking about, that I think almost undoing certain things and reshaping the system is only going to make things a lot more better. I want to ask you this last question because And as we were talking, what we are seeing on the news is the Lamborghinis and the greed of having and being in positions like that. The downside when we talk about scarcity is people who truly have a full passion for this business or for whatever that they want to do, but they can't even mention a price. They can't talk about it. They have very low self-confidence around this idea. It doesn't seem like I'm building a rocket, so does it even matter? And I'd love for you to talk into that, predominantly because you were terrified of entrepreneurship before you stepped in. But you spoke a lot around, building confidence and this awakening that you've kind of stepped into after you turned 50. How do we start? I don't know if I should even say moving with boldness, because saying the word doesn't automatically make the person bold. But what are practical things that somebody can do that feels like they don't know how to talk about the offer, they're struggling to mention the price, they don't even know how much to charge, because it's like, if I charge this 1,000 rand, am I even deserving? It's like the money psychology. It's the deserving and talking about it. I don't have the car when I rock up at these meetings. Are people going to think that I'm worth this contract? And this is what's happening with a lot of South Africans, where when they now get to a point where they're angered by those emotions, they take it to the street or in other avenues because they feel like they're not getting access to the things that everybody out there who possibly could be squandering what they're getting is getting access to.
Yeah, it's a powerful question. Again, with one of my conversations with God, I can't remember who I was thinking about, but God said, I think you need to ask them, who teaches them? Where are you learning from? Because you'll find that a lot of people are just learning from themselves. So it's whatever's in their mind that they're regurgitating to themselves, right? And if that's what you're doing, then it's going to be really, really, really difficult to step into boldness. Sure. There are two ways of doing it, in my personal opinion, and I'm sure there are more than two, but these are the two ways, and I'll separate them just so that people have got some context in order to go into. The one is that you got to read a lot. You got to read about other people's journeys. You got to read about other people, because you're going to find that there are lots of people who couldn't price. There are lots of people who couldn't do this. There are lots of people who went through whatever they went through. All these guys that you see that seem to be successful and doing well and succeeding and all that sort of thing, read about them. Go and watch. Netflix has got lots of documentaries on people go, oh, really? Was it like that? Right? The Trevor Noahs of the world. Read about their stories and begin to digest that. And the more you digest that, podcasts, there are lots of them. The more you digest it, you'll realize you're not alone in the world. And that will be the one element that teaches you that. And then they've also got, their solutions, what they did, the different elements that they did. I think Trevor Noah is talking a lot about friendship these days, and the different friends who said things to them, and those things that they said to them, bearing fruit and all that. So that talks to friendships, it talks to mentoring, it talks to the advice that you get and coaching and support. So when you want to step into something and you're only using yourself as your key only motivator, then and the language that you have in you is insecurity, then it's just going to be insecurity, and it's going to come in 20 different forms. So that's the one side. The side that I use regularly is I'm taught by God. And again, just because he says it doesn't mean I do it. Because as you were saying earlier, it's not an instantaneous thing. Half the stuff he says is you need a few aha moments, like the know yourself, like yourself and love yourself kind of thing, which was like, when I then started thinking about what are the things that you created for me that were just for me, I had difficulty saying them because I wasn't conditioned to talk about me in that way. So again, it's our greatest fear is not that we're inadequate, we're powerful beyond measure. It is our light that most frightens us. when you start self-discovering your light, it's a, because I remember the first thing that came to my mind was, I'm a manifester. Because when I look back on my life, there's absolutely nothing that I haven't thought of that I haven't done. Might have taken a while.
Wow.
But I do it. It comes to pass as a. And I went, that's. He says, yeah, you're a manifester. That's exactly what I'm looking for. That's what I created and built in you, is the ability for you to think of everything that you. And I've been doing that literally for the last year. I think, oh, wow. It's a really weird feeling to go through, to go back to your 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, I remember I wanted a chess set, and I must have been about 12, and I looked at the chess set, and it was one of the first chess sets that came along that was a computer chess set, and I never said anything. And at Christmas I got the chess set.
Wow.
My parents had seen me look at it. I never said anything because I didn't want to ask for it, and they got me the chess set, and I started just going through a whole series of things, and then I realized that again, the difficult thing was to appreciate that I'm an attractor. So I attract people. People come into my life for, I've had people call me their best friend, and I'm like, oh, really? Am I? I didn't know that. Right. So, but you see, you can see that these are very personal strengths and characteristics that don't pertain to anybody else. They're just for you. You said, yeah. You will find that you're a magnet. You draw people, and people will be drawn to you. So I think the essence of discovering yourself and finding yourself, and I'm going back. What was the question again? I want to tie this. There's just you asked me about.
I'm even thinking about the next thing.
It'll come back to me because I was just about to tie it before I said I'm an attractor. But the thing about discovering yourself and oh yes, now I remember discovering self. You were asking me about how do people then step into their boldness? How do they figure out how to step into their boldness? The thing about, for me, and I was giving the second example, that biblically God answers my questions. Seek and you shall find. Ask and He will answer. Knock and the door will be open. So there is this side, yes, go and read. But for me, it's this side. It's the questioning. It's the repetitiveness of the questioning. It's the engagement. It's the time alone. It's the reflection. It's the because I always used to say, God, how did prophets do it? How did Paul just write all the stuff? I mean, and we follow it to this day. Yeah. But that was really because he engaged with God on a consistent basis, and God was able to answer and tell him, I want you to write this down, right? So I find it difficult. Firstly, if, I don't want to get into everybody becoming a Christian tomorrow. Read, discover people's journeys, and understand you're not alone. But anchor yourself in something that is greater than you, that can give you the guidance of understanding of why you exist and why you are here. When you, as tough as it may be, think of your tombstone and think of what's going to be written on your tombstone. When your journey is complete, were you just somebody who went from beginning to end? Or was there something that you can say, let me in? Why? I did it. I overcame. I did it. Me? I'm bypassing all those guys with a lot of explaining to do. And again, let me in. Sure. Is that how you're going to, And the moment you do that, trust me, the journey is not yours alone. It's not, you're not alone here. The world, God, the universe conspires the moment you understand that to open the path for you as you go through life. He did not do all this miraculous creation to then stab you in the back or throw a monkey wrench in your plan or make it as horrible as possible for you. all things work together for the good of God and for the good of those who are called according to his purpose. And if what you are doing is called according to his purpose, if you're really seeking that understanding of what it is that I'm meant to do, know the path is going to be hard, but also know that you've got somebody that's going to actually see you through that path, as hard as it may be. So there's no easy answer, unfortunately. There's no, here's the formula and it's going to be okay. Yeah. It's still that continuous drive to understand yourself, understand the reasoning for why you're here, and understand how your light, if you can make it shine as bright as possible, how it's going to impact everybody else around you.
We have been very open followers of Christ on this podcast, outwardly, to everyone that listens to every conversation that we have. And I'll tell you, my heart is so full. And when I was saying to you earlier, I could do this in my sleep, because I realized that there's something about these conversations that give me a language that I can't articulate.
I got you. I know.
You know?
I know.
Yeah.
I know exactly where you're going with it. No. I get it. God, one of the interesting things I learned recently, the platform isn't yours.
Yeah.
It's God's platform. And because you're doing what in you is so deeply, profoundly, divinely yours to do, it's hard to express the feeling you get from when you're doing it.
Yeah.
I get you. And I realized I was, the other thing about value add that he said to me, which was like, he said, you keep thinking this is about everybody else. He says, it's not about everybody else. It's for you. It's about you.
That's crazy.
And I have a message that I want you to be able to pass on through this platform.
Yeah.
So it's for you, but it's mine. So every time you keep worrying about how it's going to work or how it's going to succeed, you're worrying about it for you. No, it's mine. It's mine, but I've done it for you. And everybody else benefits as a consequence of that. And I'm just, that was literally about a month ago. I'm reveling in that. I'm really like, oh, wow, this is fun. And therefore I can experience it the way, and try and relax about, it's not making money this month and it's making money next month. Just relax and and enjoy it. But every time you do this, you're changing somebody's life. Every time you're able to probe, articulate, invite the guests that you do, you're changing somebody's life. So, yeah, I get you. I really do.
Yeah, there's just something about it. And before we close, when we started this conversation, something dropped in my spirit. When we were, and I feel like I'm going to be stuck on this for a couple of days now. After this, when I asked you if you were to reflect to like your 8-year-old, what would you say to them, or what would they say back to you? And as you were speaking, I thought about what dropped in my spirit was Exodus. I think it's Exodus 7. So the Lord leads them out of Egypt, and they're carrying their gold and everything else. And this is before the pillar of fire and the cloud. And it says in the Bible that God says that He took them through the river Jordan and not through Palestine. Although Palestine would have been shorter and quicker, it says God said He was going to use the road through the Jordan to take them, lest they be met with battle and want to go back. And I kept thinking to myself, sometimes what looks like the long road that the Lord took us to was actually for not only our preservation, but the lessons and everything we would require to get to that moment. And that healed me.
Yeah, it's powerful, because I think, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
I've always said that, but never digested it. Never really got it into my DNA. And it's only recently that started getting into my DNA. And that's not that part of it about value add, but also part of it, why was I adopted? Why was I this child? Why was I born this way? Why was I born there? What happened to me? And it's the biblically the stories of all the prophets, the apostles, their individual stories are always ones of trauma and battle and struggle and,
Yeah.
and all sorts of things. But to your point, I think all that was necessary for them to become who they become.
Yeah.
And when you see it that way, sometimes we go left instead of right. When the navigation says go left, you go right, and it goes, okay, redirecting.
Yeah.
All right. Sometimes we make the wrong turn, but it's never a mistake, because in that wrong turn, it'll be used as something to learn for future wrong turns, right? Then you go, oh, no, I'm never going to listen to myself again. I'm going to listen to this thing in the future. And it tells me what to do. So, yeah, no, absolutely powerful. I mean, I when I say, you know, you would have said in what's taken so long, I never say it with what's the word, with regret.
Yes.
I always say it with a sense of humor. It's kind of like, you know, you see? You know.
You should have listened.
Should have gone left. And you go, yeah, no, true. But I think overall, the journey is necessary as it is now.
Yeah.
The journey is necessary as it is now. And so many things that I could have fallen into that I didn't, thanks to a lot of listening to him as well. I look at these commissions and I keep saying to my wife, sweetheart, I can just tell you right now, if you know how many people say, oh, your dad is who? What? Hey, B, my name. I used to think if I had just gone into that right at the beginning, yeah, you'd be going, Paleti would be going, hey, I know that guy. What's he testifying on now? So to your point, you know, even when something happens at home and we're late, can't find the keys, whatever, there's something he's protected me for ahead that could have happened, that if I had left at that time or done what I thought I wanted to do at that time. So yeah, thank you. But thank you for amazing questions. You were built for this.
Thank you, Uncle Vic. I could talk to you because I feel like I haven't even started. I still want to talk about value add and so many other stuff and the state of entrepreneurship in Africa. There's so many things I want to talk about, but I think because of time, I actually have to cut it here. But you have to please promise me you'll be back again.
I promise. Absolutely promise. It's been so fantastic. I
Thank
promise.
you.
I really enjoyed this.
Thank you
really,
for joining
really
me.
good. You have an amazing way of putting people at ease and an amazing way of getting some stuff out that otherwise has a shield. But thank you for being able to do that. And congratulations, well done, and keep going.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. Resonate community, I feel like I need a deep breath after this conversation, because I think, like I said, it gave me a language to describe the certain thoughts that I had. And I know for you listening or watching right now, it also has done the same. And it wasn't even about the nuggets that we could pick up, but I just sensed that the Lord was here with us today. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys on our next podcast episode. Goodbye.